This is an in-depth guide for Ragnaros of vanilla World of Warcraft. Classic, anniversary, what have you. This is not half-assed. I am making this guide as accurately as possible. There is no guesstimation on the abilities or the functionality of them. In any decent raid comp, Ragnaros will be a one-phase fight. If you bleed out or perform poorly, it will become a two-stage fight with submerge. I will hold off on that portion at the end of the guide. The main ability that he will do to your main tanks is elemental fire. This is a debuff that does initial fire damage, that does damage over time over the course of 8 seconds, every second ticking. A portion of the raid damage that he does throughout this fight is called lava burst. There are 9 sections in the lava. Anywhere between 4 and 15 seconds, he will cause the center of those fire bursting locations to do a 35-yard AoE. They are spread about the swirl, and they have a decent amount of overlap. The other portion of his raid damage comes from an ability called Intense Heat. This is the knockback that affects anyone with a mana bar. Often you're ranged. If anyone with a mana bar is standing within the melee stack, you are wrong. Don't. This targets the location of one of those ranged players. Anyone within 20 yards of them will be knocked back. They will be sent flying about 15 yards from their previous location, relative to the direction they were from the center of that impact. Last of the important bits is Wrath of Ragnaros. This ability hits 3 people in melee, knocking them up into the air 50 yards, and about 35 yards from their previous location. This often hits your main tank. Through the power of jank, this can opt to hit 3 melee instead of that tank, random summoned pets, what have you. Is there a proper explanation for this? The best I got is random bullshit go. Because that's kind of unfair for this being an in-depth guide. Apparently there is this thing called a globally unique identifier. Think of it like a Steam ID. But what is considered the lowest value isn't mutually exclusive to the first created? It's kind of confusing. Also, that this sometimes favors combat summon pets via items or hunter pets in general. This might be something valid that I wasn't even aware of. And if you want to confirm, here is a macro to run. You can put whoever the hell has lowest value where they need to be to test out this theory. And if this theory isn't a theory, and it's already been proven, and nobody once told me, color me impressed, also annoyed. This ability is a raid-wide threat drop. When you hear taste the flames of Sulfuron, stop and let the tank establish. Thank you. And you can also manage to roll a full resist on this knockback, but do bank on it knocking your tank into orbit. And have your off-tank ready to establish threat when that occurs. If your game sense is really good as a main tank, you can last stand into Berserker stance, predict the incoming knock, use the rage from that knock to intervene back in, and keep trucking along before it knocks you far enough out of range where this is no longer an option. And the least important ability that he has is called Melt Weapon. Every time you melee him, you have a 15% chance to proc this to occur to you, which will remove 1 durability from the weapons that you are using against him. I believe this is melee only. That's about it for the average person ability expo. If for some reason you cannot kill the boss by 3 minutes passing, you will have to deal with him submerging in the Sons of Flame being spawned relatively where the lava bursts were at. They will all compact, and they will do a fire shield ability that will sap the mana from anyone within 10 yards of them. That pulsates every 3 seconds. It's not a huge amount of mana, but it's mana regardless. If this does happen, you want to get them compact and killed. You can opt to banish one, do a lot for repositioning. I honestly wouldn't give this variant of the fight much thought, because if you could put that much thought into this, you should be able to put enough effort into your character to never see this guy live for 3 minutes in the first place. So a little bit onto the strategy. Fan your ranged out in groups that are 20 yards apart. Have healing coverage for your tanks, your melee, and your ranged groups. If you get knocked, do your best to get back to where you were or into another stack. If you want to reduce the chance of your melee and tanks getting knocked, bring dog whistles, bring pets, bring wrenches. This will reduce the chance of Wrath of Rag applying to a player, and instead opting for the fodder option of a dog whistle pet or a Barov pet. If it does affect one of your melee, and you don't have a means to charge back into the fray, here is the world's smallest violin for your parts this week. Do you need to bring an assload of fire resist to do this fight? If you're the main tank, it's a good idea to bring a decent amount. If you're flashed and roided up with every world buff, if you're geared to the teeth, if your health is so high this guy isn't even threatening, then sure, you can opt out of fire resist. But if that is not the case for you, yeah, wear some fire resist. Every successful melee swing, he will land elemental fire. Without fire resist, this does significantly more damage than the melee does. With it, it obviously doesn't. If your health pool is high enough and your healers are competent, you can live the Zug life. Huge emphasis on live. If you don't have the health pool or the mitigation, then accommodate by putting fire resist into your gear set. In fact, in general, for everyone, there is a free amount of fire resist available to any of you that does not reduce your DPS at all. There is a spellcaster at the very beginning of Blackrock Spire that you can mind control. and give whoever you want 83 fire resist for free. Ta-da! Easy money. Generally, anyone raiding this fight that isn't the tank, it's not mandatory, but it's a nice to have. If you can be at Rag in under an hour, why not? I will, however, 100% advocate for using greater fire protection potions prior to this fight starting. And if you have nothing else to use, popping one when it gets fully absorbed in the middle of the fight, if it does. Melee, if the off-tanks taunt resist when the main tank, if the main tank gets knocked away, same with their challenging roar or shout, world's smallest violin for your parse. Some Zugs are likely to die if this scenario occurs. Depending on the comp, this fight should be anywhere between like 2 minutes to like half a minute. It appears that there's a decent amount of new blood coming to the game. I know he looks badass, but have some confidence, you can roll him. And that's pretty much it for Ragnaros. This video came as a request. This was a suggestion from a viewer named Callesson. Thank you for your suggestion. If anyone else has any suggestions, hit me up. I'll see what I can do. As always, thank you for watching. Huge shout out to my Patreons. Callesson is the GOAT. I was streaming the video making process. He came in. We shot the shit through the bulk of it. And he did something extremely generous for calling it a day. Thank you very much, fam. Here is a list of all the things and stuff I use to make the videos. Links to Twitch and Patreon. And I will see you again soon. TM.